Some stories, they're like whispers that travel across centuries. Today, we're going to listen to one of those whispers, a poem about coming home that has echoed through time for more than 1,300 years. So before we break it down, let's just listen.
少小离家老大回，乡音无改鬓毛衰。儿童相见不相识，笑问客从何处来。
All right, so let's dive into this. That was Occasional Poem Upon Returning Home, and it was written by a poet named He Zhizhang, way back in China's Tang Dynasty. In just 28 characters, he somehow paints this incredible portrait of a lifetime, and we're going to walk through it, line by powerful line.
So the poem opens with this first line, 小小离家老大回. A really fluid way to interpret that in English is simply, I left home a young boy and returned an old man.
Just think about that for a second. The sheer weight of that one line. An entire life is captured right there. He doesn't bother with any of the details. No accomplishments, no heartbreaks, nothing. He just gives us the two bookends, the young boy leaving and the old man arriving, and everything in between, all those decades. You feel it in the silence, in the space between those few words.
So, that's the huge expanse of time. Now in the second line, the poem really zooms in on the man himself. And this is where we start to feel the first tremor of this deep internal conflict. It's this clash between the person he feels like on the inside and the stranger he sees in the mirror.
And here it is, the very heart of that tension. 声音无改鬓毛衰. Poetically, you could translate it as, my old accent remains, but the hair at my temples has thinned with the year.
And you can really see this laid out so clearly here. On one side, you have the part of him that's completely unchanged. 声音无改, his accent. That's the sound of his childhood, right? The very core of his identity that time just couldn't touch. But then, on the other side, you have the undeniable truth. 鬓毛衰, his thinning, graying hair. The physical proof of all those passing years. He feels like the same person inside, and yet, on the outside, he's a complete stranger. He's become a walking contradiction.
So he's grappling with this feeling inside himself. But what happens when that conflict is no longer just internal? In this next line, the poem shifts from his own private reflection to a public encounter, an encounter that's about to make this feeling of alienation painfully, shockingly real.
Here's the third line, 儿童相见不相识. It means, the children I meet see me, but they do not know me.
And this is the moment it all becomes real. I mean, it's one thing to feel like a stranger to yourself when you look in the mirror, but it's something else entirely to see that same non-recognition reflected back at you from the eyes of others. In the one place on this whole planet where he is supposed to belong, he is now an outsider.
And that brings us to the final, absolutely devastating line, Wash wen keks from Hachu Lai. The question they ask is so innocent, so achingly simple. Smiling, they ask, Guest, where have you come from?
That one single word, guest, it's the final, gentle blow. What's so heartbreaking about it is that the children mean no harm at all. They're just being kids. They're curious. But their innocent question lands with the weight of an entire lifetime, and it confirms his deepest fear. He's no longer a son of this village. He's just a visitor, passing through a place that was once his entire world.
So now that we've really felt the emotional impact of the poem, let's take a moment to understand the man who wrote it. He Zhizhang was a famous scholar and an official in the Tang court. By all accounts, he was successful, he was well-known, and he lived a long, full life, far away from his home village.
And this timeline, it really helps us grasp the sheer scale of his absence. I mean, imagine this. He leaves his home as a young scholar to go build a career in the capital. He doesn't come back until he retires when he's over 80 years old. We're talking about a gap of almost half a century. That's the lifetime that he manages to compress into the poem's very first line.
So what is it that makes these four little lines echo for more than 1,000 years? Well, it's because He Zhizhang managed to distill these feelings that are just profoundly universal. The unstoppable march of time, the shifting, kind of fragile nature of our own identity, that bittersweet ache of nostalgia, and of course that huge question of what home really means.
And this wasn't just a passing thought for him. In another poem he wrote about his return, there's a line that just haunts me. The mountains and rivers remain, but the people have vanished. It's that exact contrast, isn't it? The permanent, unblinking landscape versus our own fleeting lives. That's what gives his poetry such a timeless, melancholic power. And so, the poem leaves us with its central, haunting question.
It's one that feels just as urgent today as it must have 13 centuries ago. What does home really mean? Is it just a place on a map? Or is it the people who know your face when you arrive? What does home mean when you can no longer go back?